Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Stanley Safaris Podcast. In today's episode, I speak to a legend in the safari industry and renowned as one of the best guides in Africa, Alex Walker, the owner and founder of Alex Walker Serian, some of our favorite camps in the Serengeti and the Mara North Conservancy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Stanley Safaris podcast where we chat to the owners and founders of the camps and lodges that we love to send our guests to. And today I'm very honored to be talking to Alex Walker, sitting up in beautiful Lamai in the Serengeti. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're very busy and we've been chatting about doing this for a while, so I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Yeah, morning, Sean. Nice and sunny for a change. We've had a bit of cloudy weather recently, but it's beautiful. Another beautiful day in the Lamai. So yeah, as you can probably hear all the birds in the background, I guess.
Yeah, just waiting for the elephants and giraffe to walk behind you.
The giraffe will come past every now and again. Those Ellies were through last night, kept me awake. So
okay,
you better keep throwing those questions out there.
No, nice to have an office there. Maybe I'll have to move up there one day and come and spend a bit of time in your office.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. You know, we're Wi-Fi free, though, of course. Like
yes.
Here's on the telephone now. So
yeah, okay, yeah, of course. So, Alex, obviously you're a legend in the industry. We can tell by your young beard that you've got on your face there, but. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, where did it all start for you, and what was your vision for Alex Walker Serian?
Well, that's a big old question, isn't it? I guess so. I mean, like so many people, you're brought up in the bush. You know, your parents, they go on safari all the time. You know, we lived in some pretty remote spaces in southern Tanzania and in Mufindi. So our local playground was the Ruaha as little kids. And then from there, we moved to Kenya, and very shortly after, my dad started doing a lot of safaris up and working in southern Sudan.
Sure.
So through my sort of early teens, you know, from I guess from 8, 9 years old through to that period, I was at school in UK, and then every holiday you come back and you'd be in the bush. But I mean, really remote, you know, in southern Sudan, in Talanga in the Imatong Mountains, is sort of as way out there as you get.
Yeah.
So you just develop this real empathy for nature and this environment, and this is, you know from very early on what you want to do, you know. So it's your happy space. So when you're at school, you're just looking out the window, dreaming of home, you know. When you're back, and it's like, how do you get to stay? What do you get to do? So I started apprenticing with a friend of my father's at the age of 17, just before I was 18. And I did that for a couple of years. And then sort of you slowly develop your own space and business. And I started my own sort of business when I was 21. Sure. And ran that alongside with whatever jobs you could get, you know, whether you're working on a film, whether you're guiding somebody, whether you're putting a camp out for somebody, whether you're opening areas up, you just take whatever comes. And at that stage, you just run. And while it's not about the money, not about the space, it's not about anything, just that passion to get out there and be there. So, you know, you I guess like many people who start guiding in the guiding world, leading private trips around, you know, long safaris. I mean, those days we were doing 30 days, 45 days, sure. 21 day was a short trip.
Wow.
And you put the camp out and you just made it up as you went along. And the only two things you had was basically when somebody arriving and when are they leaving. And so you had to be at the airport to collect them and drop them off at the end. And in between, you know, had this enormous space.
And where was that primarily? Where were you doing that?
Tanzania is where Tanzania, but also Central Africa and Southern Sudan, Botswana a little bit, Ethiopia a little bit, you know, so all over, but primarily Tanzania and Kenya.
Okay.
And you know, you're which is sort of home for me, and both countries I call home. You know, they both have those distinct advantages. You know, you're sort of like having a townhouse and a country house type vibe. right now. So I've ended up in the Serengeti. Big, beautiful wilderness. I mean, there's crowded parts to all of these things, but there's always ways to get off the grid.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's we'll go into it a little bit later, but that's why we love sending our guests to the Lamai camp in particular, just being on the quieter side of the river. And I know you love the off-peak season. You're always sending me videos and photos of the amazing sightings that you're having over Christmas and nobody else around. So like you say, there are definitely ways to get away from those crowds for sure. When did you start your permanent camps? When did you start up in the Mara North and in Lamai where you are now?
Yeah, so I guess the precursor to it would have been, we ran mobile camps in those days. So we used to run and shift around, and then slowly you find that like the prime sites that you taking that you like are being taken. But I think what happened is that you lose a safari when you're doing those individual one-off trips, and you lose a trip, and suddenly you've lost like 2, 3, 4 weeks of business, and you guys, you got no ability to pay them and things. So you end up putting yourself into a more permanent place or semi-permanent, seasonal basis.
Yeah.
And that way, you're then selling multiple beds on your properties to others. So I guess the first seasonal camp we must have put out must have been about 2003, 2004, somewhere there.
Okay.
So before that, literally all we the world's your oyster to have your camp stick in the back of a truck and off you go. And then Mara North was like the first permanent camp that we put down.
Sure.
So that's Serian the original. And then everything sort of evolved around the edges of that. And then you came into, I guess, there was a big 2007, 2008. 2007, we had some political unrest in Kenya. And 2008, then you had the big currency crash, economic crash. So we'd always been running and done more business in Tanzania forever, in fact. But the Serengeti became our second home. So we were running the Mara and Serengeti in parallel. The seasonal camps in the Serengeti, and then the permanent camps in the Mara.
Okay. And the Mara North, I think when we were speaking a little while back about the community involvement and things like that, you were one of the first camps in that Mara North Conservancy. Is that right?
So Mara North was always a sort of people came for a few days at a time. They're mobile camps, so would come in and out, Kandani and the likes of those guys, the sort of the old names. And then, a few of us sort of settled into this sort of more seasonal type of environment. And very soon we realized actually that we needed to come to some sort of more formal arrangement with the landowners and help everybody get an equitable share of the profits of the money. At a certain stage, it was sort of going to a political elite.
Yep.
And we needed to help make sure that all the money got to everybody who owned the land. So that's why we formed the Mara North. We started that with Karen Blixen originally, and then the other camps and partners joined us, and now we're a partnership of 10 permanent camps and a couple of seasonal, the horseback riding guys.
Yeah. Offbeat. Okay. And so how does that work? The community owns the land. You guys put up the camps and you run the camps. But then a percentage of the bed levies or the full bed levies then goes directly to the community.
So originally it worked on that sort of ticketing system, but then it was sort of a little bit, there were no guarantees. So we came to an idea of forming a guaranteed income. So I'll give you an example. I mean, we're 26 beds that we have in the Mara North now, split between 3 camps. So we have Serian, the original, which is 4 tents and a family tent, and then we have 4 tents at Ngara Serian, and then we have our Kimia, which is our little private exclusive use.
My favorite.
So for 20, so it's awesome, isn't it? So for 26 beds, we guarantee around $800,000 a year in direct rent. So 650,000 of that is an absolute guarantee before you press play, and then you then play the additional bits is per bed night and things like that. So this is the sort of cost. It's a lease cost. It's around 35% of our income. So conservation is not cheap. But by fronting up that money, we get to guarantee that amazing area. And it's the best thing about it. It's a year-round environment. The seasonality in the Mara and this Lamai area is minimal. I think in the Mara we've persuaded people to understand it. Here in the Serengeti, we still have to educate people a little bit more. It's spectacular right now. I'll send you some more pictures from this morning and from yesterday. You'll just see. There's the migration. The wildebeest might be in the south, but everything else is still here. There's herds of buffalo everywhere. There's big herds of elephant. The cats are all around. There's lots of topi and zebra, lots of plains game, and of course the hippos and the crocs and all the sort of fun stuff. The river. It's still a spectacular space.
So generally, like, migration wise, when the migration is in an area, as I understand it, a lot of those other animals actually get pushed out of the way, and so you don't see as many of those animals until the migration moves, and then they kind of move back in. Is that true?
I think you live it every year in Cape Town. Christmas time, everybody comes to Cape Town for Christmas. You can't get a place in your local pub or your favorite little restaurant or neighborhood sort of space. And it happens all around the world. You go to Spain, you go to the States and different places. So everywhere in the world, this sort of thing happens. So you imagine now these wildebeest are just coming in, and it's such volumes. You talk about 1.5 million animals, more with everything else that sort of comes with it. But the buffalo are a little bit shy, so they push back into the corners. The elephant, they want to go to the edges, into the forests and into the woodlands. Then the topi and the zebra and things, you don't really see them for all that mass of wildebeest. So your focus is more on this sort of bigger mass and this incredible natural migration of the white-bearded wildebeest, which is spectacular. But once they're gone, it's like everything just comes out of the woodwork, and suddenly you get to see everything else. I think the other thing, of course, with these areas, Lamai and the Mara, compared to the Southern African sort of environments in Timbavati and places, it's very open, and you've got all this amazing geography. So you get up on a little ridge and you can see for miles. So you can see a herd of elephants 10 miles away. You can see 3, 4, 5 herds of buffalo spread out all over the plains and the different valleys. So maybe it's just a little bit more visible and visual than maybe that thick sort of bush that you get in a lot of the South African areas. So that may be the difference.
Okay. So let's go back to the community aspect and conservation. In the Mara North, it's private. Who's responsible for anti-poaching and kind of controlling that area? Is that down to the community? Is that a combination between you guys and the community? How does that work?
So we have a Mara North holding. So it's the tourism partners on one side, and then the landowners on the other side. We have 3-4 representatives each and an independent chair. So they're looking at the bigger picture and everything, and then we employ a private management that we all contribute to as well, and they're in charge of policing the environment. It's not really it's a mixed environment. There's cattle in there as well, so we have a really I'm trying to remember the guy's name, a Zimbabwean. He was the agricultural minister, but he had a rotational plan for cattle management, which is very effective, which means you can have slightly more numbers of cattle on smaller pieces of land or bigger pieces of land and just keep moving them. And it works like the wildebeest, like the migration. They come in, they munch the grass down, and then crunch it all up with their feet. The rain comes, and with broken ground and everything, the rain soaks in. It doesn't create a sort of a barren earth, and as a result, you get this amazing grass cover. And then the name really nearly came to me, Alan somebody, and it'll and as a result, you get this amazing grass cover, and the wildlife shift in behind it. So it's actually like having our own mini migration running around the Mara North, and creating this amazing space. So we have significant wildlife in the environment, which shares with a structured livestock environment.
Okay.
Nobody actually lives inside of the reserve.
Yep.
It's only the camps and the cattle camps, and it's structured that they get shifted off to a corner, and the rest of the area, 80%, is available for the tourism, and then they shift around, and we now move into those gaps behind them. In the same way, we've stopped a lot of that wildlife, human wildlife sort of conflict in terms of lions and hyenas killing the cattle and stuff like that. So it works really well.
Okay.
So the decisions are made, from everybody's got their own agenda that they're trying to drive, but it's a pretty equitable solution, and the landowners make a solid amount of money from it. So they see the asset, they see regular money, so they can borrow from the banks and things. So they're looked after. The schooling and stuff like that is very sort of steady. And then from the tourism aspect, you know that you've got a good partner involved with you. So it's a big advantage of the conservancies is that they're a controlled environment. So rather like Timbabati and everything in Southern Africa, there's a restricted amount of vehicles and beds per acreage and vehicles per conservancy per camp. And then you have the idea of like 3 to 5 vehicles at a sighting and sharing this environment, and the others you can go and find things. But the biggest positive is this freedom to get out. You can be out there at midnight doing a game drive. You can be out there with your thermal imaging and red spotlights and things, doing amazing night drives. I mean, there's incredible sightings, and of course, then nobody else is out there. So you pretty much got the space to yourself. Talk about exclusivity. It's and a whole different environment. You can walk, you can picnic, you can get where you want. For a photographer, you can be out super early. You can go where you want and do what you need, and it's very effective as a guide. It's an incredible space. When you come to the national parks, of course, you got to stay on the roads. You can walk in certain areas, you can't in others. There's a lot of joint sightings and things at different places. But you're a little bit more restricted in what you can actually do with someone. So Mara North, especially in the high season, that July, August, when school holidays are, when everybody likes to travel, you don't have the crowds. You don't have that sort of mess that maybe places are, I would say, better known. It's just like some places are busy, and you don't want to be there.
And then in the Serengeti is a national park. So how does the anti-poaching and all that work that goes through the National Parks Board of Tanzania? How much of an impact do you have in that sort of policing of the area where you are?
Yeah, so I guess let's just go back to Mara North quickly. I mean, we don't really have an anti-poaching problem. It's more an issue of control of the livestock and incursion and how to manage that environment so that you've got a really strong ecosystem. So in the Serengeti, it's a much larger environment, and we do have traditionally poaching. You've got to also be specific. I think many people who listen to this hear poaching and they think of rhino and elephant and all this sort of thing. Well, we don't have those issues. Our issues are more meat, so it's wildebeest and zebra and things like that. So we've got an increasing population all around the Serengeti. If you look on Google Earth, you'll just see you can see the boundaries. You don't need to put in boundaries to see where the Serengeti is. You can just see it's this beautiful, pristine piece of wilderness, and around it is all lots of small farms. So there's a lot of pressure around the edges. To put it into perspective, the Mara Conservancies, the Mara Reserve, the Serengeti and Ngorongoro and Maswa and those protected areas around the edge is pretty much the same size as, say, Belgium. So it's not a small environment. There's a big contiguous sort of space that's under formal protection or some sort of formal recognized protection. So we definitely, the national parks are the guys that spearhead the desnaring, the anti-poaching, and they're very active. They're very proactive. I mean, I don't think people really appreciate how much work they do because a lot of what they do is overnight. These guys are out all night, most nights, and then doing another sort of partial job in the daytime too. At the airstrips or guarding the gates or something like that. And it's a tough place. We've seen over the past 10 years in this environment that, well, more, 30, 40 years, but certainly it's a front line, for many people. The poachers still don't want to be caught. It might be hunting zebra and wildebeest, and traditionally they would have gone out and with bows and arrows and hunted them. Sometimes now dogs and machetes, pangas. Nowadays it's snares. So we collect a lot of snares. So we work in conjunction with the national parks. We put fuel in the cars. We service their vehicles. We put the vehicle available with a couple of guys to help. And a couple of rangers go and join, and the guys will go out and collect snares. So more snares that we can take off the ground. They're less damage to the wildlife. So if we can collect 200 snares a day, that's 200 animals saved. The issue is you collect 200 a day, they'll be back out tomorrow. So you've got to get out there tomorrow again and again and again. So you can become successful, but you've got to keep at it. It's continuity and it's presence. And on the back of that, it's about giving opportunities. So this is the biggest thing. In the Mara, easily 95% of our staff are community sourced. Here in Serengeti, probably 85%. The other 5 or 10% would be rangers, kids. So it's sort of like from the other side, and then you've got 5% sort of skilled professionals out of a Dar es Salaam or Arusha or somewhere. But the guys we're employing, 50% of them could have been, are poachers that, if they weren't in your employ, they would be out there. And the poacher is a tough name because it's harvesting wildlife for the proteins, take it out to the villages and things where on the edge of the park there's some tsetse fly and bits and pieces. And that means you can't have large herds of livestock and the like. Therefore, your biggest source of proteins would be wildlife traditionally. And that's starting to change as people also change their lifestyles and have a better ability to buy alternatives. But, meat's expensive. So if you can get cheap meat from the bush, then everybody goes for it. So it's a slow educational sort of environment. So the more tourism in an environment, more eyes on the ground, more job opportunities, more creative opportunities for everybody. I mean, give you an example there. Our main guy, Innocent, who's the boss here in Tanzania, in the ground, leads all the operations or the logistics. He's a ranger's son. Came to us, started working, putting water in the bucket showers and everything like that. And today he's running the joint. So, just because you haven't had a decent schooling or you don't have an education, you have an education of a different sort. People who are hardworking and productive will always find a space in these safari camps. Tourism is this most amazing place to create opportunities for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going back to the Mara North, where you're seeing that partnership with the local communities, you're not seeing the poaching issue there because the local communities are seeing the benefit of the wildlife being there.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, they own the land. There's a
Yeah,
different,
yeah,
park,
yeah,
the government owns the land and everybody else sort of comes in and wants to feed off of it. But
yeah.
in the Mara North, the guys own the
They own the
land.
land. Yeah.
And so they're leasing it. There's a mixed use environment, but
Mm,
they see the direct cash benefit from it. So,
yeah.
and
Okay.
it begins a lot of security with that as well. So
Mm,
it's you know, job security, the health, ecology, and everything, the health of the environment, everything like that. So I think that's the real part of it.
okay. Then let's talk migration. Obviously East Africa famous for the migration. Everybody's seen the documentaries and that. A lot of people in their mind, they think that migration is a season, that it happens July, August, September, that's it, river crossings, and then outside of that, there's nothing else to see. Talk us through how the migration actually works, how it actually happens on the ground. What is the reality?
Yeah. So I mean, migration, of course, I guess it's the biggest source of our business, but it's not the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a migration and a non-migration thing
Yeah.
happening in all these environments. But the migration itself basically will start in the southern Serengeti and Ngorongoro environment, right in the south, right now. That late January, mid-January, through February, you got the birthing, the calving season.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 1.4, 1.5 million wildebeest, having 250,000, 300,000 babies, all in open plain sight, out on the plains, all over a period of 1 month. So it's just like this super glut,
Mm.
and it's spectacular. When you start to see these, it's interesting. I mean, like saying, we employ locally. So in the south, we've got a lot of Masai guys and some Waskuma, some Datoga guys, but they're all livestock people. So
Yeah.
they understand. They say, boss, look at that. You can see that wildebeest about to have a baby. So, I can see she's fat. Yeah, but no, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Look at the tail. I said, what do you mean, look at the tail? I said, you can see the tails just come up just a
Sure.
little bit. I said, what do you mean, that little bit? How you can see that, first of all? He said, yeah, she's about to have a baby. So you keep watching that one, and within about 2 or 3 minutes, you just see these hooves poking
Who's
out the bottom here. They can see this from 3, 4, 500 meters away,
your
and you're struggling to see with the binoculars. And then the next thing, 10, 15 minutes, she's on the ground a little bit. She's standing up. She's lying down. The next, she's standing up, tail right up, and out pops this baby. This baby pops out, and literally, it never ever reaches 5 minutes. Within 3 or 4 minutes, that baby will be standing,
sure.
unsteady. I mean, wobbly all over
Yeah,
the
yeah.
place, wet, and the mother will be sort of licking her face and everything. And within 15 minutes, the mother starts walking away. The baby will come, walk away. Baby will come, and within 15 minutes, be moving. And by the end of that evening, she'll be running pretty freely with the mother at three-quarter pace. So,
Jeez.
it's incredible. 9 months in the womb, and that's how you come. So the carving scene is spectacular. So then you have all these hundreds of thousands of babies everywhere.
Mm.
And you're looking at now through February, March, April, and in April the rains in the southern Serengeti. So those herds all head to the southern Serengeti to Ngorongoro Plains because there's all this volcanic ash that comes from like 3.5 million years ago, which is super rich in nutrients. You've got lots of phosphorus and magnesium and everything, all the stuff that these babies need in their milk to
Yeah.
build them powerful and strong. And by April, May, it starts to dry out. In April, you get the whole place is just spread with flowers. I think in southern Africa, there you have, I can't remember the name of it.
Macroland, yeah.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
Macroland, all the flowers.
Yeah.
So that's what happens now. Now this month, end of March, April, you're going to get all of these incredible flowers. I mean, for me, it's my very favorite time of year down there. Got elephant with garlands of flowers and black and white zebra covered in yellow daisies and things. And then the herds start to move, and they'll start to move up through the central and western parts of the Serengeti. And at this stage, they start to knock around, and the males now, they would have divided themselves into these big herds of sort of females with the calves and to the bull herds who now reacquaint themselves,
Mm.
and the bulls start carving out a little sort of space for themselves, a couple of acres of space within, or an acre within these herds as they move. and they'll be butting heads around the edges, and they'll be trying to gather in a couple of females there and a couple of females, and they'll be with their young, brand new baby, last year's baby, maybe the year before's baby, and they'll be shifting and moving around. At this stage, they're starting to mate. So all the bulls are trying to cover as many females as possible.
Yeah.
And the reality is then by the stage, they now get up. So it's raining more now, this sort of March, April in the north here, end of March, April into May. And the grass is long and lush. And in the south, it's starting to dry out because it's a desert.
Yeah.
So for 8 months a year, it's a total desert. You've got about 1.5 feet of dry dust. So they've got to move. There's just no water. So that's what pushes them up through and up into the northern Serengeti and into the Mara. So you see the first herds coming into the north here, sort of mid-June, early mid-June, and while the main herds are still back in the Grumeti area.
Yeah.
And then they'll start pushing across the Sand River into the Masai Mara, and very soon they'll come across into the sort of Mara River area. And the first crossings you'll see them in late June. Guarantees, beginning of July, probably by 10th of July, somewhere there, sort of like a real guarantee in terms of when they're actually going to cross the river. And then your crossing season, which is what people think about, because that's what they see on National Geographic, see all the crocodiles and all this sort of stuff. So that now kicks in so you're talking about late June, July, August, September, October, and out in November. So you basically, you're going to be back and forth. You imagine 2 million animals with all the zebra and everything. It's like going to one of those all-you-can-eat buffets, and then there's a big rugby team in front of you. Well, you need to snip around and get in front of them if you want any food, because there's going to be laid waste.
Yeah,
there'll be nothing left behind you. You need to be around in front. So these herds keep shifting. So if it rains over there, they shift. When it rains over there, they'll come back. They know in 2-3 days that grass is going to be this long. There's lots of lions, there's hyenas, there's everything else pushing them around. There's lots of other influences that shift them. So they come back and forth. Then mid-September, around the full moon, you'll get this big set of rains in the south and west, so the western Serengeti, and it draws away probably about 40 or 50% of the wildebeest. They go down to that space, and very quickly it dries out, and then they sort of find themselves coming back around again. So for another sort of circuit. So they'll be back around in October into the Mara. So the Mara really sees the wildebeest really June, July, August, September. A lot of them shift into the northern sort of Serengeti bit, but they'll be back into the Mara again a little bit. And then the herds drift off. Mostly the big crossings now heading south would be in October. And then the dregs just come slowly melting away through November. Having said that, the largest crossing I ever saw was in December. So
I remember you telling me
went on
about
for about 12 hours. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
So every year is a little bit different. And there's so much happening around the sides. That bit I talked about in the middle of the rut, that April, May, June, let's call it April to June sort of thing. Really, May is the key part of it. It's a really interesting time. It's a wet time in the Serengeti, but it's a spectacular, interesting time. So you've got calving season in the south, January, February, March, and then you've got the rut in the middle there, that sort of April, May, really June, early June, still going at the end of June, and then, which is really interesting to see. And then you've got the river crossings through to the end of the year, and then come November, December, everything's sort of shifting back to get there. There really, everybody talks about this big circle. It's really a north-south deal, and trying to find. So you're up here for the 2 seasons, and crisscrossing through to get down to the bottom. Then you got to talk about when the wildebeest are not there.
Exactly.
The cats are all still around. The birds are amazing. The plains game is still here. I mean, I'm sitting in Lamaya yesterday. I must have seen 5-6 herds of about 300 buffalo each. Sure. There's probably about 10,000 zebra and topi out there at the back right now. There's giraffe, there's hippos, there's tommy all over the place. We've got like 5 prides of lion that we're sort of bouncing around. Leopard, they're all over the place. So it's and the cheetah, of course. Cheetah in the south. If you want to see cheetah, you've got to get to the southern plains. And if you've not seen the migration, you can see it in the crossings, and you see this real drama. But
Hmm.
if you're not seeing the herds in the southern Serengeti in that January, February, March, April period, that then you really appreciate how many there are. It's spectacular. You drive 4, 5, 6 hours just through herds and herds and herds of wildebeest. It's
Sure.
crazy.
And your between the calving and the river crossings, what is your favorite?
So my favorite.
Between the river crossings and the
Oh,
calving season.
I think that, I mean, it's just trying to pick your favorite child, isn't it? Everything's
It's different.
beautiful for whatever
Mm.
reason. The drama of the river crossings, the spectacle of it all, the sitting waiting for it. There's a lot
Yeah,
of, like, you may sit 2 or 3 days sometimes,
yeah,
but I mean, we sit about 500 meters from one of the biggest crossings here at number 4,
mm,
and that crossing when it's firing will be 5 or 6 times a day sometimes.
sure.
So you can see a small crossing of a couple of 500 animals, and it's just got real drama, and you can see one that just goes on for hours and hours. But there's a lot of patience involved.
Yeah,
But like everything, it's worth waiting for, and it's just you see lots of stuff. Everything else is going on at the same time. So
yeah,
you're while you're sat still, there's a lot of other stuff, and this is maybe why I'm always pushing for longer stays, more days.
yeah,
I feel like everybody is in so much of a rush. When you're doing a 3-night stay, that's 2 days on the ground. When you do 2 days on the ground, you're basically forcing your guides into a certain type of behavior.
yeah,
And that means that they're going to chase the radio, they're going to chase the sightings. Let's go do the highlight tour. Let's go see the lions. Okay, we've done that. Let's go find okay,
yeah,
let's done that. Let's go find some elephant. Done that. Let's go. The real give back. And this is where people then really come to you and say, you can go shopping in Paris and have the best shopping ever. You can go to Italy, Rome, and have the best meals ever. And it's a great meal. But when you come to Africa, how many people come back to you and tell you, man, that was life-changing. This was an incredible experience. I've really, this has just changed my perspective on everything. And that really is enhanced when you spend more time in a single place, because you spend more time with the guys. There's so much to learn from the guys around us, but there's
yeah,
nature too. When you settle down and start listening and watching, and just you become part of the environment. You're not bumping into it and creating the disturbance. You're just part of the environment. So suddenly the
yeah,
elephant do walk past, and the giraffe walk by, and the warthogs, which you never sort of see up close, they're just coming and hootling around on the ground and right up in front of you, and you just sat there.
mm,
And it's coming to you. And it's a real give back
yeah,
observation. Just
yeah.
watching nature happen. It's very cool.
So it's so nice to hear you saying that, because this is when we have our conversations with our guests, this is exactly what we tell them is, if you're doing your 3 nights, your guides are under pressure to show you the animals. So like you say, you're bouncing from sighting to sighting, and you're going on your radio calls, and you're not really getting that to see the interaction and the behavior of the animals, because you're bouncing around. And the number of times I've been on safari and I've gone, oh, actually, I want to go and see leopard. That's my favorite animal. I want to focus on that. And you come away from the experience going, well, there wasn't a lot of wildlife around. And then you realize, well, I was only focusing on one thing, so I'm not seeing everything else that is there. So doing the slower safari, spending time with the animals, getting to see behavior, getting to know the guide getting to know you, I think is hugely important. And we are seeing more and more people wanting the slower, the longer stays and slowing down when they're on safari. So yeah, it's reassuring to hear you saying that and confirming that.
I think there's a there's a lot of mental health involved.
Mm,
We don't do Wi-Fi in any of our camps, as you know.
yeah.
Um, we we want you to engage with the environment.
Mm,
Is why, and the reality is that kids are very adaptable. I mean, they're
yeah.
once it's turned off, they're just imagination runs wild. Um, Board games, all that sort of thing. But
Mm,
wildlife and that conversation with your guides and everything. When you're doing those short stays, you're going from one place to another, and they're beautiful. All these camps and things.
mm-hmm,
I mean, the lifestyle stuff that's been going on, the design stuff that's out there is crazy these days.
yeah.
But you sort of miss the point of slowing down and you need to disengage in order to re-engage with nature and re-engage with your old self, and just sort of, it's like having a reset, rejuvenation, and have real conversations. The old DMCs that we all try to avoid as youngsters, but these things sort of allow themselves to happen more naturally. The wisdom that comes from the people that you're spending time with, it's a whole different perspective on life.
Yeah.
Nature itself, it's like tree bathing, and so I was listening to something this morning. It's quite interesting. I can't remember what it was. They took a sound recording of from a natural forest, and then they took a sound recording on the next block of forest, which was all planted gum trees. And the natural forest was just full of bird song and had a real ambience and everything like that. And then you went to the gum trees and everything, it was just spookily quiet and dead, which is sort of a bit like, you go to like a house in Europe or something, double glazing, and all that. It's quiet inside, and the only noise is the radio or whatever's going on, the TV, that noise. But here, it's when you have bird sound and bird life and everything, the place just feels vibrant, the insect sounds and all that sort of thing. And there's something about it that actually just energizes you as well.
Yeah.
So, the wellness culture, which is sort of on a big wave now, we have that in spades here, but you've got to slow down. You just got to let it happen for you, and nature will do that to you. Sitting and watching a herd of elephant all afternoon is amazing. See them when it rains and get in the mud puddle and play and everything. I mean, it just puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Just sitting here listening to the birdsong in the morning, listening to the dawn chorus, or being out early and watching that pre-dawn and all the stars disappear and things. It's soulful.
Yeah.
You don't need to talk.
Agreed.
Nature works for you.
Yeah. Love it. And so, we've spoken briefly about the guides, and one of the things that I love about what you guys do is that every guest, every booking, every couple gets their own private vehicle and guide, so that they can be completely flexible with the experiences that they're doing. They get to know their guide. You as a guide, I used to be a guide. Talk us through the importance of guiding on safari. I've been on safari plenty times. Your guides are some of the best I've come across, and you do pride yourself on that. So talk us through the importance of having a great guide on your safari.
Yeah, obviously it's, there's guides and guides, and like all of us, we have our different strengths and weaknesses. So it's like, but it's really, I think, when you let's go back to that short stay. When you do put people into that 3-night thing and 2 days, you can have the most experienced guide in the world, and you can have somebody straight out of school. You're really not giving the guy with all that experience a chance to express himself, and so these differences are more marked the longer you stay with somebody. Good guides will just they're interpretive. They're not about trotting out a whole load of facts and rushing around, but they're also entertaining. They've got to be entertainers. They've got to read the room. You've got to work out. Somebody it's people not into being lectured, coming on holiday, but you want to learn, but you want to learn in a fun way. You want to learn, but you want to feel that you're learning stuff without it even seeming that way at all. So good guides is a really rounded experience. I mean, it's the same as having, I guess, everything. You can just take it to cooking, where a lot of people sort of understand. You can have a great meal at a sort of a 3-star Michelin environment with the most amazing chef in the world, but it can be a little sort of impersonal. You can go to a little pub around the corner and have a fish and chips and be entertained royally by somebody who's just flipping burgers on the side or something. So it's not necessarily about the depth of your knowledge so much as like how you interpret it and how you bring it to the table and how you share it with everybody. I think the main thing though for us is that when you put somebody in their own private vehicle and experience, the guide is there looking after you at your pace.
Yeah.
So where you come from, what part of your journey are you in, part of your safari, have you been on safari many times? Are you a photographer? Do you like walking? They've got to identify all of those different things and then work the environment for you. If you've got a guide, a single guide, so with us, we have a guiding team, we always have 2 guys there.
Yeah.
If you've got a single guide and he's got a car full of 8 people or 6 people, 2 from here and 1 from there and 1 from another, somebody's on their first trip, somebody's really into birds, somebody's a photographer, that guy's got to manage multiple personalities and multiple things, and everybody's there in a rush, and so inevitably it sort of falls down to like, what are the highlights going to be that you're basically going to work for everybody? Let's just trim it all down and give you what's going to work for everybody. So the advantage of that private vehicle and time spent allows our guides to express themselves. It's not that they're any better than anybody else or anything else. They just have more time for expression and more time to engage with you on a very personal level, and therefore you get a more genuine interaction, I guess, or it's maybe it's not like it's disingenuous. It's just meaningful. Maybe is the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Alex, I'm going to let you get back to work. I know you're very busy in your up there in Lamai. I'm very jealous. But takeaways: spend longer at each camp. Get into these areas outside of peak season. It is amazing, even though the migration might not be in the area at the moment. The wildlife there is phenomenal. So don't discount these areas outside of migration season. Definitely amazing. And the testament is, you, as I said, you keep sending me amazing footage of stuff that you're seeing every day outside of that migration. So it is there, and people just need to go and enjoy it without the crowds.
I think that's it. This is peak doesn't mean it's the best. It just means there's more people traveling.
Yeah.
Off peak or green season, secret season.
Yeah.
It's a secret. That's
exactly.
That's the one. Take advantage.
Exactly. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Alex Walker Serian and the beautiful camps in Tanzania and Kenya. In the next episode, I chat to Fabia, the owner of Chem Chem Lodges in Tanzania.